Peace be upon you, friends. What do you think that arrogant physician who said, "There is no ailment I cannot cure," needed when he couldn't find a cure for his own illness? Where wealth, fame, and knowledge proved helpless, the compassion in a shepherd's heart and a handful of prayers changed everything. Listening to this cautionary tale, you will see how arrogance destroys a person and how humility heals. On the highest hill of the city there was a magnificent mansion with horse-drawn carriages always waiting at its gate and the scent of rare plants wafting from its garden. This mansion belonged to the country's most famous doctor, Chief Physician Kenan Effendi. Kenan Effendi was truly a skilled physician. The mixtures he prepared and the syrups he boiled could cure even the most seriously ill patients. However, as Kenan Effendi's knowledge increased, unfortunately, his humility decreased, and his arrogance surpassed mountains. When people said to him, may God be pleased with you, we have found healing, he would frown. If it weren't for my knowledge, you would be 6 feet under. Pray for my knowledge, he would say. According to him, healing was not a gift from God, but a product of his own intelligence. The mansion's door was only open to those with gold coins. The poor and the destitute could not even cross the threshold. On a hot summer day, Kenan Effendi was examining expensive herbs from distant lands in his cool room. The door knocked. His assistant entered. He had a hesitant expression on his face. "Quote 4, he said. "Quote 5, she says. Kenan Effendi, without putting down the expensive saffron bottle in his hand, looked at her contemptuously over his glasses. "Quote 6, he said with a mocking smile. "Quote 7. The assistant bowed his head and left. The woman's cries and the child's whimpers at the door could be heard for a while longer. Then the sound ceased. Kenan Effendi, without the slightest pang of conscience, muttered quote 8 and continued his work. When evening came, Kenan Effendi counted the gold he had earned that day and lay down on his feather bed. He thought to himself, __9_. However, towards dawn that night, Kenan Effendi felt a strange itch in his right hand. At first he didn't pay any attention to it. "It's just a fly bite," he said. But the itching turned into a burning sensation. It felt like someone was pressing hot coals into his hand. He jumped out of bed and lit the lamp. He froze at the sight. On the very center of his skillful right hand, the hand that prepared those healing mixtures, a dark, coin-sized spot had appeared. The spot was alive. It throbbed and was turning the surrounding veins purple. Kenan Effendi immediately ran to his medicine cabinet. He applied his best ointments and most expensive oils. "This is just a simple fungus, he said to himself. "It will pass by morning." But when morning came, the spot hadn't disappeared. On the contrary, it had spread to his wrist. Moreover, it was no longer just itching, it was causing a terrible pain that penetrated to his bones. Kenan Effendi was facing a disease he had never seen before in his life. He rummaged through his books. He read old parchments, but he couldn't find a description of this black spot anywhere. As the days passed, the situation worsened. Kenan Effendi began wearing gloves to hide his famous hand from people, but the pain was reflected on his face. He couldn't sleep at night, writhing in pain. One day his assistant entered the room and found Kenan Effendi applying a poisonous mixture he had prepared himself to his hand. Quote 13, said the assistant. Quote 14. Kenan Effendi screamed, his eyes rolling with pain and rage. Quote 15. Stop. Quote 16. I will die if I stay here. My knowledge is finished. My books are silent. I need to leave. I need to go somewhere where no one knows me and I know no one. Look, this St. John's wort is good for wounds. This honeysuckle cleanses inflammation, but he knew that even if they applied all the herbs in the world to this black mark on his arm, it wouldn't help. Because this wound wasn't coming from his body, but from somewhere else. But Kenan hadn't yet discovered that door. By the end of the second day, his water ran out. His tongue was stuck to the roof of his mouth. The man who prescribed 3 meals a day on a full stomach for others was now in need of a sip of water. His strength failed him. He collapsed at the foot of an old plane tree. As his vision blurred, he thought to himself, quote 19. Just as he was losing consciousness, he felt something wet and rough on his face. He opened his eyes with difficulty. A huge, giant shepherd dog, a Kangal, was standing at his head, sniffing him. Kenan tried to recoil in fear, but couldn't. At that moment, a deep and peaceful voice was heard. Don't be afraid, traveler. Karabash doesn't harm strangers. He sensed ill intent. When Kenan turned his head, he saw the man standing on the rocks. He was a shepherd, his hair and beard disheveled, wearing a patched felt sack, a gnarled staff in his hand, and worn sandals on his feet. But there was a strange brightness in the man's face, and a tranquility in his eyes as deep as mountain lakes. The shepherd descended the rock with a swift movement. He took out the gourd from his belt and held it to Kenan's lips. Drink, he said. This is mountain spring water. It invigorates the soul. As Kenan drank that water, he thought he had tasted the most delicious sherbet of his life. As the water passed down his throat, it seemed to cool his soul. The shepherd lifted Kenan onto his back. That frail-looking man had such strength that he carried Kenan like a feather to his cave-like hut a little further on. Inside it was simple: a mattress on the floor, a fireplace, and a sooty teapot. He laid Kenan on the mat. "My name is Veysel," said the shepherd. What is your name? Where do you come from?" "It doesn't concern you. You are God's guest. Are you hungry?" Kenan was ashamed to say he was the head physician. He could only say, "My name is Garrep. I'm just a lost soul." Shepherd Veysel smiled. "We're all strangers anyway, son. No one has ever found their homeland," he said, and poured a bowl of soup from the black pot on the stove. It was a clear soup made only of water, flour, and a few mountain herbs. Kenan wanted to reach for the soup bowl, but he couldn't lift his aching right arm. Groaning, he tried to hold the bowl with his left hand, but as he moved, the heavy, decaying smell emanating from between the bandages filled the small hut. Kenan bowed his head in shame. This smell was the smell of death. He expected the shepherd to feel nauseated and chase him away, but Shepherd Veysel didn't even hold his nose. Without the slightest sign of disgust on his face, he sat down next to Kenan. He fixed his eyes on the bandaged arm. "Your burden is too heavy for you, traveler," he said softly. "You can cast off the burden on your body, but this wound won't heal until you cast off that invisible burden on your back." "Kenan." He was surprised. "How do you know I have a wound?" Veysel Choban threw another log into the fire. The crackling of the fire broke the silence. "I'm not a doctor. I haven't been to school or a madrasa," Veysel said. "But I know that some wounds cannot be healed with a knife or ointment. I see it. The pain in your arm comes from a knot in your heart. Whom did you hurt? Whom did you look down on? Whom did you turn away from your door that this fire found you?" Kenan froze. This ignorant shepherd was reading his biggest secret, the woman he had driven away from his door, and his arrogance, as if it were a book. Kenan said, his voice trembling. "I made a very big mistake, but there's no turning back. This illness will kill me. Even the greatest doctors in the city couldn't find a cure for it." He was still hiding the fact that he was talking about himself. Shepherd Veysel placed his hand on Kenan's strong shoulder. That night Kenan lay on a hard, stony cushion listening to the howling of wolves outside. The pain in his arm was unbearable, but the words of the Shepherd Veysel hurt him more than his arm. Quote 36. When Kenan awoke with the first rays of dawn, he found the Shepherd Veysel waiting by his side. Veysel held a bundle of thorny, ugly-looking herbs with purple flowers that he had gathered from the mountain. Veysel said. Kenan sat up hopefully. Quote 39. Veysel shook his head with a bitter smile. Quote 40. But for this herb to take effect, you first need to remove those bandages and show me that festering wound, accepting your helplessness without shame at the smell, at the sight. Would the world's most arrogant physician dare to reveal half his face to a mountain shepherd? Could he do it? That pride of his, the one that said, "I know best," could the door to healing open without being utterly destroyed? Kenan, with his trembling left hand, began to untie the knot of the soiled bandage on his right arm. With each fold, the pungent smell of decay spread more intensely throughout the hut. Kenan's face was bright red with shame. The man who had looked at the wounds of patients with disgust and grimace his whole life now had to show his own repulsive wound to someone else. When the last bandage fell, the sight was horrific. An arm blackened up to the elbow, skin peeling, veins purple. It looked like a living piece of a corpse. Kenan closed his eyes. He expected Shepherd Veysel to shout quote, _43 and throw him out, or for his stomach to churn and turn away. But there was no sound. He only heard a sigh, a deep, compassionate groan. When he opened his eyes, he saw Veysel looking at him not with disgust, but with tenderness and sorrow, as if he were looking at his own child's wound. Veysel gently held Kenan's decaying wrist with his 10-year-old hands. Kenan flinched. Quote 44, he said. Quote 45, Veysel smiled. Quote 46. Then he began to crush the thorny, purple-flowered herbs he held in his hand on a stone. He added a little olive oil and some ash. The result was a muddy, discolored, and pungent-smelling ointment. Kenan thought of the gold-dusted, musk-scented pastes he prepared in his famous laboratory. Then he looked at the mud this shepherd had prepared. The old doctor's voice inside him whispered, "Will this filthy mud heal you, Kenan? This is madness." As if he had read Kenan's mind, Veysel raised his head. Quote 48, he said. Quote 49. The moment Veysel smeared the porridge he had prepared on half of Kenan's arm, a scream escaped Kenan's lips. It was as if hot oil had been poured on his arm. Kenan shouted, "Yes, I am Kenan, the chief physician. I was the richest and most knowledgeable man in the city, but now I am nothing. I am like a wounded animal in need of a shepherd's mercy." Veysel smiled. "Now you are beginning to heal, Master Physician, because the moment you say, 'I am nothing,' he says, 'I am here,' and comes to your aid. The more you said 'I am' to win your fame, the more he left you to your own devices." Kenan burned with fever that night. In his dreams, he constantly saw the old woman and the child in her arms rising into the fire. The child was crying, the woman was pleading. Kenan in his dream was trying to reach out to them, but the dark mark on his arm was holding him back. When he woke up at dawn, the door of the hut was open. A cool mountain air filled the room. Kenan looked at his right arm fearfully. The pain had lessened. That unbearable throbbing had stopped. Veysel entered. He had freshly milked milk in his hand. "Good morning, doctor," he said. The wound began to scab over. That thorny plant drew out the poison. Kenan sat up joyfully. "Am I getting better? Has that mark gone?" Veysel shook his head. His face became serious. "The plant drew out the poison from my body, son. My arm was saved from being amputated. Yes, but the mark won't go away. It's not the mark on my body, but on my heart. I can control the plant, but I can't control the heart. So what will happen? Will I live with this black mark for the rest of my life? I gave you half the medicine. The other half is with you. If you want that mark to go away, you will find the cure you chased away from that door. Your fire won't be extinguished until you find that woman and bring down that child's fever, Kenan Effendi. Go and knock on that door, not as a doctor, but as a servant." Quote 60. "Is there a poor woman here whose grandchild is very ill?" Last week, people who were looking for a doctor looked at him strangely. "Which one are you asking about, you strange man?" they said. "There are many sick people around here, but no doctors." Kenan wandered around for hours. Just as he was about to give up hope, he heard the sobs of a woman filling water at an old fountain. "Oh, my child," the woman was saying. "Oh, my Omer." The light in his eyes has faded. "What am I going to do?" Kenan ran to the woman. This was the woman he had seen in his dream, the one he had chased away from her door. "Auntie," he said, breathlessly, "is your great-grandchild still alive?" The woman recoiled in fear. She was frightened of this shabby man. "He is alive, but his breaths are numbered," she said. Crying, the fire in her head went to her. The doctor said, "Take him home and let him wait for his death." Kenan's heart ached. "Take me to him, Chui," he said. "I am a doctor. Perhaps there is a solution." The woman was surprised, but like someone clinging to a snake when drowning, she took Kenan to her dilapidated house. When they entered, little Omer was lying unconscious on a mattress on the floor. His face was ashen. His forehead was burning with fever. Kenan immediately knelt down. With his left hand, which was still intact, he checked the child's pulse. The pulse was very weak. The child who would have been cured with a simple syrup a week ago was now on the verge of death, and the reason was Kenan. Kenan took out the remaining purple-flowered herbs that Shepherd Veysel had given him from the bag on his belt. With trembling hands, he prepared a poultice. But there was a fear in him. What if I can't cure him? What if he dies because of me? At that moment, for the first time in his life, Kenan revealed not his knowledge, but his helplessness. He put his head on the ground. His forehead touched the dusty earth. He groaned, "Oh God, I have sinned, but please don't. Let this child not wither because of my pride. Healing comes from you. I am nothing. Give this child life. Take my life." From his eyes, "Grandma, water. Thank God, thank God. When you say I am within you, I say I am here. Healing comes from God. Here those with ailments are treated, not those with money. I didn't do it. He did it," he would say, and the people of the city no longer remembered him as the arrogant chief physician, but as Father Kenan. Friends, knowledge, position, and status are all tests. The moment a person says, "I have become," is actually the moment they die. Arrogance is the most dangerous evil that grows in a person's heart. Neither doctors nor medicines can remove it. Its only cure is humility and compassion. Remember, God demolishes proud mountains, but he makes humble valleys flourish. Dear friends, I hope this story has been a balm to your hearts. If you liked the video, don't forget to press the like button and share this cautionary tale with your loved ones so that others can also benefit from it. You can subscribe to our channel to not miss our new stories and to join our family. Remember, the greatest cure is a pure heart. Don't forget us in your prayers. May God protect you.